Hello, everyone. My guest today grew up in a rally family, but rally was not her first sport. Before she ever strapped into a race car, she had already won 13 world championships in a different sport. When she finally did find her way to rally, she noticed that almost nobody was talking about the stories of the women in it. So she started telling them herself. That turned into something a lot bigger than a few articles. She has since gotten into the car herself, with a national champion sitting beside her on her very first rally. Her name is Josie Rimmer, head of strategy at DirtFish Rally School in Snoqualmie, Washington. Josie, welcome to the Power Unit.
I'm so happy to be here.
Awesome. So, Josie, let's start at the beginning. You grew up in a rally family, but then spent your whole childhood on horses. How did that come about? And did you think that rally was always going to be like the ultimate destination?
I had no idea that rally would pull me at all. I actually fully expected the opposite, because I was surrounded by rally and motorsport for a lot of my childhood, but I was just so infatuated with the horses. And funny enough, my brother, who has been quite a successful rally driver, he was the first one to be interested in horses. He asked my parents if they would help him take riding lessons, so they purchased him like a pack of 10 lessons. He took like two and decided that he was over it. But I
Okay.
had been going with him to his lessons and
Yeah.
I fell in love. So I took the rest of his lessons and never stopped. Um, and that was my thing. And because motorsport and cars were my dad and my brother's thing, I honestly didn't even consider it until much later.
Okay. That's interesting. Uh, Speaking of you won 13 world championships before the age of 21. Now, I did track and field in high school when, I was a kid, and I felt like it was a lot of pressure just trying to stay up with school and manage, just practice and everything. How did you manage to balance that and have the drive and win championships at that age?
It's honestly funny because I never thought about it. I think that, I mean, of course, there were late nights and there were challenges to meet deadlines and due dates and all of that. But I mean, I loved the horses and I loved the competition of equestrianism so deeply that I just did whatever I had to do. There was a point where I was riding at the barn as soon as I got my driver's license. I was riding at 5 a.m. before school. I would go to school. I scheduled my off period
Hmm.
at certain times of the day so that I would have enough time to leave school, go ride, come back to school, and then I would end up working at the barn in the evening. So, of course, there were moments that were challenging, but I think when you truly, madly, deeply love what you're doing, everything else just feels like a puzzle piece to allow the fun thing to happen. So my brother and I would show up at school an hour before we needed to so that I could get my homework done that I should have done the night before, but I was at the barn. And you just figure it out.
How does the family fit into that with the cars, with the horses? What is that dynamic? And would love to hear more about that.
Well, the joke that everyone loves to make as soon as they hear that I was into horses is that I traded horses for horsepower.
Oh yeah.
1 horsepower for a couple hundred. um, yeah, growing up, I think my brother and I were both just so inundated in our own worlds. I was at the barn sometimes up to 3 times a day, like I just mentioned. My brother was playing basketball, football before he converted to being a driver, before he was legally allowed to be a driver. And we were both just really on our own paths. But I have to give my parents an insane amount of credit because whether it's horses or race cars, there was never a moment where they said no or where they said that's unlikely. They just said, what do you need to do to accomplish that? What do you need to do to set yourself up for success? And for me, that meant, working in the barn at a young age, learning how to clean a stall at the ripe age of, 7 or 8 years old and loving it. Um, yeah, it meant doing the grunt work. It meant doing all the hard stuff that you see long before you see any of the glitz or the glamour. And I always loved that. My parents, whether it was for my brother or for me or for anyone that was in our circle, the answer was always, yes, you can do it,
Yeah.
but you have to figure out how.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome to have that dynamic for you at such a young age. I guess moving on to, you pivoted to being a writer at DirtFish. Like how did that come about?
It came about completely unexpectedly. Again, no part of me was like itching to be involved with cars. I loved cars. I bought my soul truck when I was 18 years old on eBay. I always loved them, but I never was going to be involved in the business or in the rally side of things. Um, Unfortunately, my heart horse passed away in 2018, and I just did not know what to do with myself. I had literally been competing in this sport, working with horses for at that point, 12 years or whatever it was,
Yeah.
and didn't know how to step away. So, and then COVID hit, which made everything worse because that's what it does. And again, we were very lucky and fortunate in the context that we were in when COVID hit. And it just so happened that as I was kind of looking for a new purpose and looking for something to really drive me, haha, um, one of our long-standing amazing employees here at DirtFish, Chrissy Shelton, was actually stepping away. And she was actually working at the front desk. So I started at DirtFish at the front desk. I worked with just customers, people that wanted to come in and experience rally and get wild and get sideways and all of it. Started there and then just got curious about writing. I had always loved writing. When I started working at the front desk at DirtFish, I was actually still in college, but we had switched to being remote.
Hmm.
So I was working at the front desk, answering phones, doing emails, had to take a quick half hour to log on to an online classroom session,
Right.
came back. But in my collegiate work, I was doing a lot of writing and genuinely enjoying it. So I asked our CEO at the time here at DirtFish if I could try my hand. And he said, absolutely. He sent me to our head of media, David Evans, who taught me so much in like a 45-minute call. And when I went to write my first article, it seemed obvious. There was a triple generation family of women, the Tabor family, who rally. And I'd seen them in the service park, and I'd seen their rally car, and I'd seen their girls just want to have fun sticker on the back of the car. And it seemed very obvious that they were a great starting point for me to write my first article. And so I took to the internet for some inspiration and see what was out there and just couldn't find anything. So that was the moment where I decided to start writing articles from the front desk while I was still doing online college. And I would exclusively write about women.
Wow. Okay. That is a lot. Yeah, I feel like a complete underachiever. Like I did okay in life, but I
You
absolutely.
hardly seem like an underachiever.
No.
The little I know about you seem like the opposite of an underachiever.
Uh, so how did this the writer gig, like clearly, I mean, hey, people will hear the rest of everything I know about you and I think they'll agree with me, but you went from the front desk to being a writer, now you're head of strategy at DirtFish. How did that happen? Where do you focus? Yeah, I'm just I want to hear what that's all about.
I always said, like from a very young age, that I loved learning on the go. I actually love the feeling of not knowing what's going on and then getting to like nitpick it and puzzle piece it and figure it out. And that's the exclusive way that my entire career at DirtFish has gone, by just starting and then like picking my way through the bushes. Um, I just kind of started saying yes when people needed help or projects needed help, or, I was writing the articles and there was an opportunity to travel with the media team to a WRC event. And of course I said yes. Um, we host a ton of events here on site at DirtFish. And so I just volunteered to be the one, like you just say yes. Um, and so I just kind of gradually started taking on some responsibility that I really hadn't expected. Um, we had a couple of team members move on or literally move physically to other locations. So they were no longer working here. And again, I just kind of accidentally took on some of those roles. I was able at one point to transition away from being at the front desk and to move into the staff writer role full time, and then kind of started adding layers of other folks' jobs as they were leaving. So that ended up with me taking on some of the partnership relationships, building some new brand deals, building brand awareness, bridging the gap between our amazing media team and our amazing rally school team, just kind of general practice. And then all of a sudden, a new title was necessary. I apologize. My computer's making noises and I don't know why, but
That's all right. Uh,
um,
what you were saying. I was thinking about this saying I heard that I try to live by. Right, you don't make 100% of the shots you don't take. Right,
exactly.
and yeah, and it really resonates with me in terms of like I consider as someone in products, you're making method out of the madness. Right, like just like throw something at me and um, I'm gonna try and fix it. And that's fine. uh, do you need a minute?
I just don't know what's dinging.
Right, well,
Everyone makes fun of me because they call me the worst millennial, and I am. I'm like terrible at technology, but it's completely true. And I think another thing I wish that someone had said to me is like you can't always see when the progress is happening, and you can't always see when you're making the moves. It doesn't always feel like this giant transition professionally, personally, whatever. Um, but as you keep moving, I think if you generally know what direction, I don't even think you need to know like what goal you're trying to hit. But if you know like what direction you're going, I think those big transitions happen often in much smaller ways. And so even just the way you worded that question of like, okay, you were a writer and then you were head of strategy, like how did that happen? I don't know that I could tell you. I think that every month I just took on something. And I'm so lucky because our DirtFish team is incredible. They bolstered me the whole time. I had no idea what I was doing. I felt and still to this day sometimes feel wildly underqualified to be managing people. Um, but I think that I've learned the most important lesson in working in a team, which is that if they're the right people, everyone knows what they're doing. You
mhm.
don't need to be the smartest one in the room about every single topic. Our shop manager, Ryan, comes up and he's telling me about some diff setting, and I am actively trying to learn and I ask him a lot of questions and all of that. But I don't need to know more than him to help make a decision. I just need to trust that Ryan knows what he's doing. And if there is a piece of that puzzle that needs someone else's voice or thought or process, then we just add to each other.
Yeah, that makes sense. And as you build this path for yourself, you also built the summit, the Women in Motorsport Summit, and you know going from a few articles to building the summit, I feel like now I understand your thought process of how you kind of build brick by brick. How but tell our audience how it came about. Now it's from being in a small little gathering, it's like a big event. And I know you mentioned Claire Williams was there last year. Like that's, I mean, tell me more about that. Tell me, how can people participate? What is the goal of the summit? And what does the future look like?
Absolutely. So again, I mean, I like how you put it brick by brick. And it is another testament to not seeing growth as it's happening. Um, I was working as a staff writer full time in 2022, and I had gotten the amazing experience of interviewing all these incredible women from around the world. So, of course, that was at the forefront of my brain and everything I was doing. And Women's Month was coming around March 2022. And the only question I asked was to my colleague Michelle, and I just said, what do we do? We have to do something. What are we going to do for Women's Month? And the the sort of easiest fruit to pick was adding an all-women's program to our schedule. So we did that. We added an all-women's one-day program to our DirtFish calendar, and we didn't even have time to market it. It sold out in like a day.
Nice.
We added another one, and another one, and another one. And quickly, by the time we were looking at the finalized schedule for March 2022, we had 4 completely sold out all-women's programs, which meant that we were training 40 women in the month of March alone that otherwise would not have signed up. So that was already kind of building something that we didn't quite realize. We just thought we were doing a cool thing. And then the question became, well, what else can we do? You know, we have an incredibly unique set of resources here at DirtFish. There has to be something that we can do in addition to these all women's programs, because we've proven just now that there's a desire, that there's a need. Okay, let's do more to satisfy that desire. So we launched our first Women in Motorsport Summit that took place in March 2022. We brought in 9 panelists from just the local region, women from all realms of motorsport, from drivers to co-drivers to team managers to business owners to mechanics to, I mean, you know, all roles were represented. We had 75 folks show up for that first summit, and it was in our indoor class, our indoor classroom here at DirtFish. That was great as far as we were concerned. It was awesome, but I have a hard time not wanting to go bigger. So the next year we ran the summit again. We expected about 150 people, but we were able to secure Michelle Mouton as a panelist in only our second year of operation. So, of course, legend of the rally world, and queen of the hill.
Mm-hmm.
She came out. We were expecting about 100, 150 people. We saw 350 people. We had standing room only. The good news is we had rented a wedding tent, essentially, and put it outside. We featured local women-owned businesses that year. We brought in women vendors. We brought in women-owned pizza, food trucks, like the whole thing.
Yeah.
Every single business or entity that was represented was somehow women-owned or women-operated. Then we kept growing. We kept hosting all women's programs. We, instead of just having one-day programs, we extended them to all types of our programs, all lengths of our programs. We had repeat students. We had women that showed up in our half-day women's program and now are competing on a global stage. So it just snowballed really, really quick. I was still trying to write articles. I was traveling with the media team, featuring new women in motorsport, featuring women that were just getting involved. Our summit kept building and building and building. And last year was our 4th annual Women in Motorsport Summit in May of 2025. We had to move venues because our wedding tent solution was no longer working.
Mm-hmm.
We were very lucky to be welcomed by LeMay, America's Car Museum, down in Tacoma, which is a historic, legendary space. We sold out their venue. We were at complete max capacity with about 500 people in person, and we launched a live stream powered by AT&T. I got off the stage about 2/3 of the way through the summit last year, and the head of the AT&T crew that was operating on site walked up to me with his phone in his hand. There's a big number on it, and I was like, what does this number mean? There's no context here, right? He says, this is the number of people that's logged into the live stream right this minute. And it was 380,000 people.
Nice. That's, as much more than an NFL game for most days. That's amazing.
And by the end of the day, when we were doing our closing speeches, they took a screenshot of the website, and we were at over 500,000 viewers live in that moment. So
mind-blowing.
It's grown like crazy. Of course, in that time of building the Women in Motorsport initiative up, I was still running a lot of our partnerships on site here at DirtFish, running the strategy side of the business. Last year, we were able to kind of, marry those two things, the partnerships, the relationships with the Women in Motorsport initiative. And last year, we were able to launch our DirtFish Women in Motorsport driver program, which supports 2 amazing athletes, Aoife Raftery from Ireland and Michelle Abadi from here in the US. Aoife is driving rally cars and Michelle is driving Trans Ams. So 2 amazing women to start the initiative with. This year, we've made a huge step, which is that DirtFish Women in Motorsport is backing Aoife for an entire national championship in the American Rally Association. She's already beating Travis Pastrana on a few stages. So, I mean, the speed is crazy. We've got Leah Block representing women in motorsport. I mean, we've just been so lucky, and it's really required us and me to reconsider all of the strategy behind crowdfunding and partnerships and sponsorships and relationships to make this happen. I mean, I've had to flip the whole script, which has been challenging, but knock on wood, it's working.
Yeah. I guess I have a question from what you started with in terms of like you didn't even advertise this and it sold out, right? So clearly there was demand. Like, did what did the women that signed up say about like DirtFish was always around? Why did they have to wait for a women's program to be a part of it?
That's such a great question. And I want to make very clear that women are welcome and more than welcome in all of our programs.
Right.
But the feedback and the response that we got from those women that showed up for our first all women's programs was that their barrier to entry was knowing that they would very likely be the only woman in the room.
Yeah, fair.
And we all have different comfort levels with that, but we also know actually right now, not for long, that motorsport is a very male dominated space. And in any sport, in any athletic space, egos take up a lot of the room. So there was this like safety and comfort from the women joining us in those first all women's programs of, I don't have to, you're learning how to drive a rally car. That takes a lot of mental capacity. We were able to remove the mental capacity of, I'm the only woman in the room. They were able to remove the mental capacity of maybe I'm the only one in the room that hasn't done a track day or that hasn't done DirtFish before or that who didn't know this existed until my friend signed me up last week, So that was and continues to be the main feedback of women that participate in those programs. But I do also want to call out credit for the fact that I don't know the exact percentage, but my brain math in this moment would tell me that 80% of the women that have participated in our all women's programs have gone on to participate in our longer co-ed programs.
Okay.
They just needed the step in, and then it wasn't scary anymore.
Yeah, that resonates across so many industries, unfortunately, at this point. But
of course, I mean, you've seen it in tech, I'm sure.
yeah. I guess this takes me into that next thread is that, you then jumped into the car finally to make your rally debut. And I was reading about how you were a little scared to put the Women in Motorsport sticker on your car because you thought, like, if something happened, it's going to become a meme. Given you were working through empowering all these other women, like, tell me about what that thought process was.
Totally. It is such a double-edged sword. I don't even know if that's the right term, but oh my God, I can't tell you even, like, my trained brain was at war with who I inherently observed knowledge from being here on site told me. It was like there were two voices in my head, and one made sense and one made less sense, but was more convincing. So the first time that I was given the opportunity to quote unquote race was in a rallycross series. Northwest Rally Association hosts regional events everywhere, and they're wonderful. They hosted at the time because of COVID and everyone needed something to do. We launched a winter series with them where they used the back part of our property and people could come out and drive their rallycross cars. I had acquired a rallycross car. Well, let me rephrase. I'd acquired a car that could be used to do rallycross. But I was terrified to go do it and be the slow woman or be the girl that hits a cone or the, whatever. Like I was doing all this work on the DirtFish side to confront exactly that. And then it came time for me to do it. And again, that like stupid voice in my head was telling me, don't put yourself in the room lest you discredit all of the other women that are trying to do this.
True. Right. Yeah.
And then Michelle, again, our incredible senior instructor, Michelle Miller, she sat me down and she just said, but you're in the room. You're doing it. And what part matters to you more about what you individually are pushing forward to women in the sport? Does it matter that you show up perfectly? Or does it matter that you show up? And I was like, even just saying it now gives me goosebumps because
Right.
it matters that you show up. And we have to be allowed to be beginners and we have to be allowed to be bad at things. And I would argue that anyone of any gender, once you pass a certain age, it is like no longer cool and funky and fresh for you to be learning new things. It's no longer cool to show up and be a beginner.
Mm.
I think that's the coolest
Yeah.
now
Yeah.
that I've retrained my brain. So I showed up, I did the rallycross as a beginner and I was slow. And guess what? I did it. And guess what? Nobody said a word. Nobody
There you
cared.
go. There you go.
Nobody cared.
Yeah.
The girls did, the young girls that were showing up to watch their family or whoever race, they were
Mm.
like, there's a girl in that car.
Yeah.
That was the extent of it. So did the rallycross for a few years and then got the opportunity to take a car out and drive stage rally. And start it all over again. I mean, I swear it was like I spent all that time in rallycross doing all these events, like, yeah, I'm in the room.
Yeah.
And then I showed up to stage rally and I was like, I'm going to be the slow chick again. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm a beginner again,
Yeah. Yeah. How do you push through something like that? Because again, you feel like you have experience in something and now, oh my God, I have to start all over again just because it's like a different variation.
I think I just have to go back to like a mental priority. What's my mental priority? It can't always be that representation is contingent on result-based success. I'm, you know, we're not trying to build a world where, yeah, you can be a woman in motorsport, but you have to show up winning. No, that's never going to work. We need to build the system up. And so, what better example than somebody who now has dedicated her entire job and her career at this moment in time? It is my entire focus to get more women into the sport. And 27 times a day, I say, it doesn't matter what experience level you have. It doesn't matter how you show up. It just matters that you do. If I can't live that, like if I'm holding myself to this weird level of, okay, that's true for everybody else, but for me, I have to show up perfectly. Who am I? Who am I? What am I? Then nothing that I'm saying has any credit.
Yeah. No, that's fair. That's fair.
I think, again, I'm lucky to be surrounded by amazing women and men in this sport that remind me all the time that, we're just showing up and we're doing as well as we can and we're prepping as hard as we can and we're working as hard as we can. And the result is the result, but we're showing up day in, day out.
Yeah. Speaking of being surrounded, by amazing women, your co-driver for your first stage was, I'm probably going to butcher the name, sorry, but Rhiannon Gelsomino.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um, how did that friendship help you grow and be more confident and show up in these areas?
Well, first of all, I love you. I love her. um, Rhiannon and I bonded in a semi-unfortunate circumstance, which is that she was co-driving years prior for my brother, who he was leading the Olympus rally in 2018, and that rally ended by him rolling something like 8 times over tree stumps with Rhiannon in the passenger seat. It was not, no roll is good, but it was like really not good.
Right.
Luckily, he was fine. Thank whatever for, thank science for great safety equipment.
Yeah.
But we were all at that event supporting him, and he was out for the event. So we spent most of that day in the hospital. Once he and Rhiannon both got cleared, my dad drove my brother home, and I drove Rhiannon home.
Mm-hmm.
Rhiannon and I got stuck in dead stopped traffic, and we were sitting there for a solid 2 hours not having moved. And Rhiannon, still in her race suit, said, "Hey, can I ask for a favor?" And I said, "Of course. What do you need?" She said, "Is there any chance we could go get a milkshake?"
Oh.
Of course. And it just so happened that the universe was helping us because we were in stop traffic right by the exit to a Sherry's Pie. So we pulled off, we waited out the traffic, had a milkshake, bonded for life, sister for life. Um, and so when I wanted to do a stage rally, just a really local little teeny regional event, I texted her and she said absolutely.
That is, yeah, there you go, right? It's, I always feel like you have to put yourself out there. You have to, let the universe do its job, and the right people come
Yeah.
your way, right?
Yeah.
Um, what would you say is like the hardest part of rally driving that someone who's watching would never really imagine it?
That someone wouldn't imagine. Well, for women, it's hard to find a place to pee. I'm going to be really honest. You're out on the stages for a really long time. And there's no porta potties in the middle of the woods. So
Oh yeah,
that's kind of my funny answer, but it's so real.
yeah.
And one of the sisterhood moments of being a woman in rally is every single one of us has been taught by another woman in the sport how to properly pee in a race suit. Um, what is the hardest part? One thing that a lot of folks that are unfamiliar with rally don't realize is that we're not running on the same roads over and over again. We're not running on a closed course.
Hmm.
And 90% of the time you can't see the next corner. So obviously that's the importance of having your co-driver in the car with you yelling
Yeah.
uh, what corners to take, what's coming up next. But what was a tough learning lesson for me is that no matter how much practice you do, you cannot get anywhere near the type of experience that you get once you're on a stage road. And practicing on stage roads is incredibly difficult to find. You can't often find access to a road like that that's representative of a rally. Um, so for me, like when I went out for that first little rally with Rhiannon, I was like, okay, I've done all the prep work I can. I've been really lucky. I've gotten a lot of drive time in DirtFish. I've shaken down this car, whatever. I've worked with Rhiannon in the car. And then we had the stage and it was like everything was out the window. Do I even know how to drive this car,
Yeah.
Um, and then you learn I did not learn this on my first event. It took me probably 3 events to figure this part out, even just a little bit, is the hearing your co-driver through your intercom without listening to them. You're so busy focusing on what's happening on the road, trying not to have a big off, trying not to hit the tree that's staring you in the face, trying to figure out how tight this hairpin is again. Um, and when you're on your first few events and you're like forcing your brain to like, no, wait, what did she just say? What did she just say? What did she just say? What does that mean again? What did I add the plus to? Um, it's like impossible. There's too much going on. And then there comes a point for me, I think it was like during my third rally, so my second rally with Michelle in the passenger seat, and I just suddenly realized I wasn't thinking about listening to her anymore. But her inputs were almost like skipping the processing part of my brain and just going into the response part of my brain. And that was a really cool moment.
Cool. I I wanted to ask you about one thing I saw, and for anybody else who wants to, know what I'm talking about, go to Josie Rallies on Instagram. But recently, you did a race, and you hit a rock, and I could only see like part of that. Tell me what happened. Like, what was all that about?
Yes. So I took a hiatus from stage rally because I had my hip totally rebuilt about 2 years ago.
Oh wow.
And so that took me out of the rally car for way longer than I would have hoped. This year, I just couldn't wait any longer. And I
Mm,
was like, that's it. I'm going rallying.
mm.
So I did the Oregon Trail rally. I had so much fun. I learned so much that on the drive home from Oregon Trail, I signed up for the Rocky Mountain Rally in Canada.
Okay.
Michelle and I go up to Canada. We're having the best time. We're on this stage. It's a great stage. Someone had pulled a giant rock out into the middle of the road.
Wow.
Fine. Swerved it. Avoided it. Clearly somebody cut that a little too tight and just yanked it right out into the middle of the road for us. And when I say rock, I mean it was like twice the size of my head. Okay, it was like a. Well, we ran that stage again another time later that day, and we had added it to the notes as we were driving through. So we were like, "That's a big rock. It probably
Right.
won't work by the time." And this is a time where it did not skip into the into the
Oh,
of my brain where the no didn't. Michelle told me don't cut. I thought I had successfully avoided a cut, but I needed to don't the part of don't cut a little bit more. But I did the don't, and I cut a little bit. And God, to this day, I'm like, I was so convinced I cleared that thing, and I did not. Hit that rock so hard. It bent a control arm, bent a tie rod in my right front. So I drove the rest of the stage. We were like 3 kilometers into an 18-kilometer stage or something. And I drove the rest of that where my steering wheel should be straight, where my wheels, my tires are straight. My steering wheel was about 45 degrees to the right. So I didn't know where center was anymore. But you know what? Apparently I helped the competitors behind me because I pushed it out of the way. So you're welcome.
There you go. Okay, all right, I'll take
I
that.
was just trying to. There are moments like that, and I am so grateful for the training that I had growing up in the horse world of that mental reset in the moment. Because there's simply no time to dwell. And the consequences are so significant in a rally car that it's like, everyone always says the moment you look in the rearview mirror, you're done.
Yeah.
And that's just a saying because rally cars don't have rearview mirrors, but it's so true, right? And I was so grateful that immediately my competitive brain was just like, next, move on, adjust, adapt. And I'll admit, I haven't admitted this out loud yet, so I'll just say this to you, but the only people that know about it are our service crew and Michelle and I, which is that I had a much more significant moment in that event the next day, which resulted in me almost hitting a bridge and then almost hitting a tree and somehow avoiding all of it and then needing to finish the stage having just bent another control arm again. So my poor crew had a really hard job that weekend. But again, like, it's metaphorical in an obvious way, which is that we simply have to chug along and we have to shift our mindset to be able to adapt to whatever circumstances in front of us, even if it's one that was completely unplanned for and maybe even like dreaded. The circumstance is a circumstance, and how do we respond to just squeeze any of the good juice out of it?
Yeah. Well, you said next up, when we talked earlier, you said you're headed to Goodwood. This year is different from last year. Tell us why. What's exciting?
I get to drive at Goodwood.
Nice.
Which I'm very excited about. Goodwood is the best. My dad and brother, I think my dad's gone to Goodwood. I should ask him, but I'm going to venture a guess like 18 years in a row.
Wow. Nice.
We work with the amazing Ian Gwynn of BGM Sport, located in the UK, and he brings out a handful of cars. He runs them for their respective owners. And so I get to join their team again this year and drive a couple of cars on the rally stage up at the top of the hill, which I'm just over the moon about.
Awesome. And well, that's not it. You have the next summit coming up. So like, what's next for the program? What's next for you in the car?
Yes. So there's a lot to balance right now, but it's all the most exciting things. We go to Goodwood, and then the following weekend we're heading to Colorado for the next round of the ARA Championship with Aoife and her amazing co-driver Hannah in the Women in Motorsport car. And then what? And then we're going to Scotland for some super top secret driver training. And then on August 21st and 22nd is our 5th annual Women in Motorsport Summit. So the last 4 years have been incredible. As I've mentioned, the growth has been insane. And they've been very conversation-based, all very panel-based, sharing of experience, the importance of representation, all of that. But this year it's time to do the thing. It's time for action. So this year we're taking over the entire DirtFish property. We will have about 14 Women in Motorsport pros that are joining us here on site that will be running their own workshops. So we'll have like a mechanic workshop, an off-road workshop, rally and co-driving, media, health, film, track, drift, stunts. I mean, it just, the list goes on and on. And there will be an opportunity for our guests to meet all of these amazing women in motorsport pros in real time, hear about their experiences. Our guests get to pick which of those workshops they want to go to, ask all the questions they have, bring all the friends they have. The Women in Motorsport Summit is about having women on the mic, but everyone is welcome, regardless of age, gender, experience. So that's on the Saturday. On the Friday, on August 21st, we're running a very, very limited VIP experience day where our guests get to show up. They actually get a mini session behind the wheel. They get to drive our rally cars. And then we put them in for thrill rides with some of our Women in Motorsport Pro drivers. And then they get to come up top to this building with our women pros to have kind of a happy hour meet and greet situation. So that's from 12 to 4 on Friday, August 21st. The main workshop-based summit is on Saturday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And in that evening, we're hosting a gala auction-style fundraiser event to raise money for a Women in Motorsport initiative and driver program to make sure that women in the sport are not only getting access to resource and opportunity, but also funding. Women are severely underfunded in the general sporting space, especially in motorsport.
Yeah.
So trying to bridge that gap. That event is also available. Tickets are on sale. Tickets are on sale for all of these events. You can buy individual tickets. You can buy a bundle. If you're a part of a corporation and you're listening, we are selling full-on tables to that gala event, and you'll get to hear some really special stories from our women pros. So that is the weekend. That is the weekend of WIM, August 21st and 22nd here at DirtFish, just outside of Seattle.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Josie. Everyone heard it. You want tickets to the summit, August 21st and 22nd, go to dirtfish.com. We really appreciate Josie being here. She did not wait for this sport to make room for her. She made that room herself. And as you can see, she's holding the door open for everyone behind her. Good luck at Goodwood. And you can follow Josie at DirtFish or on her Instagram at Josie Rallies. Thanks everyone for listening to the Power Unit. Whatever your fast lane is, do not wait for permission to get into it.